All right, mates, welcome back. We are going to spend a few minutes. We're going to talk about got a chance to get out, and Buddy's got a tournament coming up, Lake Anna in Virginia, coming up here, and so able to get out on the water, able to check it out, able to be out there for really the first time for me. Geez, probably in 2 years, um, and so totally like floored in a sense that what's happening with Lake Anna. Now, again, I grew up Central Virginia, fished Lake Anna. Used to camp at Christopher Run, which is off 522 towards the western side. Um, Always enjoyed Lake Anna. Always have loved to fish there growing up. But like everything else, it's become kind of a pleasure boat, kind of that for a lot of people as you get older. And if you live on the lake, it's great. The development on the lake has just boomed for the last 30 years. And I tell people when people ask me about, fishing that, and also for people from my part of the country that go down to like South Carolina, that Lake Murray and Lake Anna to me are a lot alike in terms of how they fish. Lower section, midsection, upper section. Have a river, have, the channels coming through, has a river feeder, right? All these things kind of like are very, very similar. And now with the stocking of blueback herring in Lake Anna in my lifetime, so that's probably 40 years ago. I think was the first stocking for blueback. Got to remember, Lake Anna has both strains of largemouth bass in it, which is kind of unique for a lot of places in Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia in terms of that. So it's got the Florida strain and a northern strain in it. So you can take that for whatever that's worth in terms of is behavioral's different, all that stuff. Feeding habits different, all the spawning habits different, take that for what it's worth. Because you have a mix, and I'm sure that now you're getting a lot of cross breeding. Now, what's interesting about Lake Anna is Lake Anna was one of the only lakes to ever do a lot of hybrid crosses, which were kind of unique. Back in 13, they did a cross between sauger and walleye, so you get your sauger eye. They only did it in 2013. 2014, they did the hybrid white bass with a striped bass female. And so it's some unique stuff. You catch some kind of unique stuff that you're like, I don't really know what this is sometimes, which is really unique. Plus, you've got a lot of the other populations. Your forage populations have also been increased ebb and flow, okay, because of what happens with climate, what happens with development, what happens with, the situation of the power, Dominion power, all of that over the years. You had hydrilla booming in the 80s and 90s, and then it kind of all the way back down. Then it started to come back. You've got willow in the middle of the lake, that's booming. You've got, and you got a lot of the other, again, housing and development interests on Lake Anna that affect a lot of the things that they do. One of the things that really happened too from the angler community is they stopped stocking walleye, okay, because there wasn't any interest in the creel survey, in the surveys done by anglers of people fishing for walleye. Kind of missed the boat a little bit. I mean, when you look at Pennsylvania and Pymatuming and places like that, walleye fishing is coming back, I believe, for a lot of people. I totally enjoy it. I think it's great. I think it's a great escape for if you fish for bass all the time. But in terms of Anna, you've got your forage populations. I'm going to cover a lot more of this in depth on the Facebook page, just with all the stuff. I'll break them down. But you basically have, obviously, your stock blueback herring, which is growing, will continue to grow in parts of the lake. Gizzard shad, threadfin shad, and then your panfish forage. There are chub suckers, there are white suckers, but they're not nearly as prevalent in terms of fishing. And how you know that, and it's interesting if you do your studies where you fish, how you know that is oftentimes some state DNRs, okay, will not only electrofish, okay, but they will also open up fish. They will take selected fish to find out what fish are actually feeding on. And it's interesting on Lake Anna, we've always seen a steady diet of panfish ahead of the shad and the blueback. So that could be a product of just when the electrofishing takes place, obviously, because I'm sure if you took that during the spawns, which are different, the spawn for bluegill, the spawn for crab, those spawns are different than the shad spawn, which is different than the blueback spawn. They're almost, which makes Lake Anna really unique in terms, and Murray, because it kind of spreads out that bite over a longer, 8 to 14-week period from late April to maybe June, to where you start to get maybe the gizzard shad are spawning, then the threadfin shad are spawning, then the blueback are spawning. So you get that. So I've had a lot of people tell me that that's when, the bite's on. And so that's, pretty good in terms of gauging, really good windows of opportunity, depending on how you like to fish. Do you like to fish shallow? Are they going to move? They're moving up shallow to spawn. Perfect for the shallow guys. Before they move up shallow and then post spawn, they're going to move back out for people who like to fish offshore. So all those things come into play. So it's really, really interesting to kind of see that and kind of get feedback from, people that fished the lake recently, that are fishing tournaments at least once, some twice a year, on Lake Anna, to kind of hear again, I used to fish the upper portions of Lake Anna for years in the 80s and the 90s, and then now you've got more of a mid-lake, and a lot of that I think has come from the aquatic vegetation, the willow, and a lot of it, that's been done better, I guess, since 2010, in that section of the lake, which attracts largemouth bass, attracts forage species, right? The better the water clarity, the better the water quality, the better all these things will factor in, to populations. You got to remember it's over 9,000 acres or something like that for Lake Anna. Lake Anna is huge. And it's also interesting to take a look at when you look at fishing pressure. Okay, Lake Anna is one of the most pressured. But people don't think of it that way because it's so big, as opposed to a smaller body of water that seems like it's getting a lot more because everyone's more compact. Maybe everybody's on top of one another, all that kind of stuff when you get to the ramp and when you're out on the lake. But Lake Anna is so spread out that you don't really get an idea that, it's been ratcheting up with one or two exceptions, I think, in 13 and 15 or so. That might have been a lot of weather, hurricane, whatever influences kind of into that when you study. But you're looking at 13, to 17 hours per acre, okay, of fishing pressure. All right? You got to think about that. 9,000 plus acres, 17 hours per acre of boats on the water. That's probably not even taking in consideration kayakers yet. That study probably hasn't even happened yet. I consider, I was messaging with a buddy earlier who was asking me about, fishing a kayak tournament in Lake Anna. And I was just like, man, Lake Anna is to me, is just like big water. Like, it's just big water. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, the kayak tournaments that are starting to launch out of Lake Anna, to see how they do. Because a lot of that's predicated on, are you launching South Lake? Are you launching Pleasant, Elk Landing, maybe Duke's Mid, Freedom, Rocky Branch up top, campgrounds to the left. You got Lake Anna State Park. There's so many launches. So much of that is predicated on, from kayak fishing, even if you have a trolling motor, where you're launching from. And we did see quite a few. I think we probably saw 8 or 9 in this small section. And mind you, only out for a few hours, probably saw 8 or 9 people kayak fishing. And for all I know, they could be pre-fishing for a tournament. I think it's coming up this weekend. But I don't know, but you're seeing more and more of that. So that kind of fishing pressure probably doesn't factor in to everything that happens on Lake Anna. So it's just really, really interesting to kind of see what you have with Lake Anna in terms of not just fishing pressure, but like how the lake is responding to that pressure and everything else that's happening. Um, so it'll be really, really interesting to see going forward. From all reports and people I've talked to, that they think Lake Anna is about ready to just explode. With going on a stretch run of just quality. Whether it doesn't matter whether you're stripers, we call it stripers. It doesn't matter whether you are fishing for largemouth, hybrid bass, um, you know, any of the other species. It just seems like the lake is seriously on a run here. And I got that feeling. Like I said, it reminds me a lot of my years in South Carolina at Lake Murray, in terms of how it fishes because of its forage species. So we're going to come back and we're going to break down the baits that were kind of used on Lake Anna. I just want to give you a kind of an idea of Lake Anna if you're not familiar with it. I'll do a little bit more deeper dive on Facebook.